Namaste, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Ashley Turner, yoga teacher and psychotherapist. Today we are talking about depression, the truth about depression. And we are also celebrating World Mental Health Day on Thursday and World Mental Health Awareness Week this whole week. So welcome. I am so happy to be a part of this conversation and raising awareness on the holistic solutions to mental health, really getting to the root causes of some of the challenges that we experience. So today we're talking about depression, and many of us have heard that depression can be caused, aside from situational depression. So let me just start by saying there are two forms of depression or anxiety: situational, which occurs according, in response to an obvious life experience like a loss, grief, divorce, losing a job, anything like that, that's situational. But if we're talking about intrinsic depression or just an experience of maybe prolonged depression, we often hear that this can be caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain. And the truth is, I've been listening to Kelly Brogan a lot, so I highly recommend you tune into her work. But the truth is, she's a psychiatrist, was in New York City for many years, and completely switched, put down her prescription pad 10 years ago and has switched to a very holistic approach to psychiatry and psychology. And so the truth is that there has been no study done in the last 6 decades, not one single study that proves that depression is caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain. In fact, there hasn't been a normal brain activity, normal brain chemistry ever established. So this is a myth that we've been sold, and we don't need to get into the big conversation about big pharma and our healthcare system. But for us to really wake up as consumers, for us to wake up as our own health advocates, to trust our own inner experience and become our own inner healer and physician. So no study done, number one, in the last 6 decades that's proven a relationship between depression and chemical imbalance. Number two is that there has been no normal biochemistry, brain chemistry ever established. So it's really important that we wrap our heads around that. Just like anything in these biochemical, life, human body experiences, everything is different for every single person. And what we have now is a cocktail of different psychiatric drugs that are each isolating and working with one different neurotransmitter: dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. I am not advocating against using pharmaceuticals entirely, but I just want to really educate us and raise awareness on a deeper layer of this conversation. So no normal has been established in terms of brain chemicals. Now, what I want to talk about next is the chemical imbalance myth, which is called the serotonin theory of depression. It implies that a lack of serotonin is what is serotonin is the feel-good hormone, is what is causing low emotional states. But in 2009, and I can link this in the comments for those of you that want to look further into this. In 2009, there was a meta-analysis done of 14,000 depressed patients, and they were looking for a relationship between the gene that transports serotonin, stressful life events, and the risk of depression. And what they found in this study of over 14,000 depressed patients is that there was no link between low serotonin and depression, nor was there any link between a stressful life event and a change in serotonin levels. What there was a link to was the number of stressful life events that one experienced and associated depression. So I'm going to say that again. There was no link in over 14,000 people. There was no link in this low serotonin and depression. There was also no link in a stressful life event and and having low serotonin, low production of serotonin. But there was a link between the number of stressful events and the experience of depression. So we cannot conclude that low serotonin is actually responsible for depression. So the three things that I want to offer you, my three biggest tips to work with depression in a holistic way. Number one, depression is often an inflammatory condition. And we know that the gut biome, the microbiome of the gut has a direct relationship, bidirectional relationship, meaning that the gut informs the brain and the brain informs the gut. So when we have inflammation, which can often be due to the microbiome being off, maybe leaky gut syndrome, a lack of healthy probiotics in the system, that can cause a system-wide inflammatory response. This can lead to symptoms that look like depression that one experiences as depression. So the first thing to do in a holistic approach to really any disease is to get on an anti-inflammatory protocol. So that's, of course, reducing processed foods, reducing animal products, reducing, hold on a second, let me just see here. Someone says, well, you just blew my mind. That's Susan. Hi, Susan. So anti-inflammatory diet, the first basic protocol is eliminating processed foods, adding more healthy fats, removing common foods-based allergens, gluten, dairy, adding strategic food supplements. One thing that you really want to address and look at and diagnose is your B12 levels. So look to see what your B12 levels are, and you might need to add that in as a supplement. Number two, grounding, reconnecting to the elements. This cannot be underestimated in our modern urban technological world. So getting outside, sunlight, getting vitamin D, making sure that your sleep-wake cycle is aligned with your natural biorhythms. So in general, going to bed when the sun goes down and getting up when the sun rises. Also, we have to consider the EMFs that we're living in. So we're having these, 5G networks everywhere and just a barrage of information and technology. So really going on digital detoxes, eliminating, doing things that are going to combat all of that input on our subtle body, on our chronic body, on our nervous system. So grounding, earthing, and community, building community. One of the biggest attributes of depression is a feeling of isolation. And that can be a tendency when we feel depressed. So, and in our technological world, even though we can be more connected in places like this online, we also can feel isolated in our personal lives. I was just with some friends yesterday and we sat for just 20 minutes with two girlfriends having a heart-to-heart. It was so deeply nourishing and changed the whole trajectory of the day. So really seek out those IRL, in real life connections and relationships. And then the final thing that I want to offer you is reframing your experience of depression, sadness, disappointment. As in-depth psychology, we talk a lot about reframing. You choose how to make meaning out of any life experience. So ask yourself instead, and this is where the yoga comes into a spiritual conversation, what am I experiencing in this health crisis in my life? Why might I be experiencing this on a soul level, on a deeper psychological level? What is the relationship that my soul, or the message that my soul might be trying to get through to me? Is there a deeper truth at play here? Often, the surface layer symptoms, whether it's physical or psychological, mental, emotional, are the triggers, our body, mind's response, trying to get our attention that something is amiss, that something is awry. Is there a truth in your relationship, in your marriage, in your career, something that needs to be addressed? So engaging in that dialogue. Of course, I'm a huge advocate of therapy, but also do this in all of our yoga work as well, mindfulness, self-inquiry. Why would I want to mask this experience with pills? Now, there's a whole other, video that I can do on the side effects of antidepressants, and that there's actually not a lot of research. The percentage of people using antidepressants has gone up 65% in the last 15 years. And so if if these SSRIs, which is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, if people were getting this boost of serotonin through the SSRIs, then we would assume that they would be feeling better and there would be a mass reduction in depression and less need for more SSRIs, but instead it's going up. So it's just something to consider. What is the motivation of the people that are prescribing this, promoting this? And one other fact that I want to offer you as well, and this is highly documented, this is in the NCBI website, there, and I said this on my Instagram story the other day, there is a 17-year gap between when something is scientifically proven to be beneficial and when it trickles down to the average physician and becomes standard practice. There's a 17-year gap. So now we can see, even now, that there's been such a explosion of yoga and mindfulness and across many different platforms, but it's taken 20 years for the yoga practice, meditation, mindfulness to become normally accepted as a great option, as a great opportunity, a great alternative, right? So I don't even want to use the word alternative because I'm really advocating for it to become mainstream protocol. So back to the questions that you want to consider. Why would I want to mask this message? The truth is, it can get worse before it gets better. When we start therapy, it can get worse before it gets better. When you start digging into your relationship, if you haven't been aligned, it can get worse before it gets better. Things start to come up to the surface and reveal themselves that are not always comfortable. And then finally, what is the message inside of this experience that I am meant to hear? So we really, in depth psychology, work to reframe depression and actually invite it in and open a conversation. There are specific exercises, and I'll do another Facebook Live on a specific exercise that we can do to engage with that part of your psyche that's speaking to you through these symptoms. So that was a lot packed in here. I really want to hear your comments. A CBD, I have not tried CBD, but I do think there is a lot of great scientific research coming out about that. The food pyramid, absolutely, anti-inflammatory. Please give me your comments right now. This is not at all, there is really no criticism on whether, someone's using antidepressants or not. If it's working for you, that's great. But this is just to open up the dialogue and start peeling back the layers of this very complex issue. So I want to help raise awareness. We're here to advocate. If you haven't joined we have a free challenge going on. Please jump in and join us. A free yoga mental health challenge. Click the link right there. It's in the description, and we have over 1,000 people doing this challenge right now. Free class every day, a class on yoga for anxiety, yoga for depression, yoga for confidence, yoga for grief, and yoga for joy and happiness. You get a free class, post online, and you have the chance to win over $1,000 in prizes. So happy World Mental Health Day, happy World Mental Health Awareness Week, and thank you all so, so much. I'm going to come back in a few minutes and link to these scientific studies and some of this research in the comments. Love you all so much. Namaste. Oh, finally, before we end, if you like this video, please like it, and please share this with anyone you think might be interested. Please help spread the word. Please help advocate for a holistic approach to mental health and wealth, and I will see you inside.